Get ready for murder, femme fatales, conspiracies, porno ladies, mermaids and stuff.
Don't say and stuff.
That's right. We're covering Shane Black's The Nice Guys, this time on Blind Spots and Second Thoughts. Welcome back to another episode of Blind Spots and Second Thoughts. I'm Dan.
I'm Heather.
And this time we have a very fun movie to talk about. So, Heather, what do you know about The Nice Guys?
Nothing.
Not anything.
Nothing.
Do you want to take a wild guess about what this movie is about?
I could not begin to guess, but I think it's about some nice guys. Do you think that's...
Like the
on
internet,
the right track?
Like the internet term for nice guys?
No, that's what I'm worried about, but I'm guessing they're actually nice.
Can you name anyone in this movie?
I believe that Ryan Gosling may be in this movie.
Hey, that's a good one. Okay, that's Ryan Gosling is in this movie. All right, so I'm going to show you the poster of the movie and see if you recognize the other lead.
Okay. Is that Russell Crowe?
That is Russell Crowe. All right. So, yes, the leads in the movie are Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe.
He looks a little like John Goodman in that picture.
He does. You are not the first person I've heard say that.
I didn't know that they'd ever been in a movie together.
Well, they have. They have been in The Nice Guys. In fact, actually, the reason that they are in this movie is because they each wanted to work with the other.
Oh, okay. Well, looking at this picture, I'm not sure that I was right about them being actually nice guys. There's a lot of weaponry in this picture.
There is a lot of weaponry in that photo.
So now I'm stumped.
So having seen this image, what would you guess this movie is about?
They're going to shoot some people.
That's a good guess.
No, I don't know. They seem a little intimidating.
Do you want to describe the image?
Sure. So Russell Crowe has some brass knuckles and a rifle, and
I think it's a shotgun.
Oh, okay. I don't know guns. It's a long gun, and Ryan Gosling has a pistol in a holster, but he has it, and they are wearing interesting outfits. Oh, they're detectives. I missed that.
How do you get that?
It says LA Detectives.
Oh.
Did that spoil it?
Oh, that's funny. That must be an international poster or something.
They don't look like detectives. This looks kind of retro to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I thought that I probably have seen this before, which is how I knew Ryan Gosling was in the movie. I did not know Russell Crowe was, but I do feel like I had this idea that it was maybe 70s because of the 60s or 70s because of the font of the title. And now is seeing the kind of red, orange, and yellow background. That's a little, I don't know, it just reads 70s retro to me. And their outfits a little bit.
All right, so this movie was released in May of 2016 alongside the Angry Birds movie and Neighbors 2, Sorority Rising. I had completely forgotten that there was a sequel to Neighbors, although I haven't seen either of them. This was just 2 weeks after the big draw for May, Captain America Civil War, which we will eventually get to on this podcast when we do our MCU run, and the week before X-Men Apocalypse and Disney's live-action Alice Through the Looking Glass. So more sequels that I think most people have forgotten about, or in the case of X-Men, aren't typically remembered very fondly.
I haven't seen any of those movies.
Well, I think Angry Birds is probably the one that you can safely assume that we will not really cover on this podcast. So at least there's that.
Not surprising.
Do you know who wrote and directed this movie?
No.
Shane Black, who is best known for writing the original Lethal Weapon, wrote the script for this movie and had it sitting around since 2001. It was originally contemporary, but was rewritten to be a period piece. Like I said before, Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe both agreed to star because they wanted to to work together. And this is from Hollywood mega producer Joel Silver, who produced the aforementioned Lethal Weapon movies, Die Hard, The Matrix films, and Predator.
Shane Black is in Predator, is that right?
That is correct. Shane Black is the guy with glasses, the one who makes the joke about his girlfriend's echoing vagina.
Tasteful.
So given that this is also since it's from Shane Black, one of the movies that you and I have watched together is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which was also written and directed by Shane Black. So I would call this maybe a spiritual sequel to that.
Okay. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is the one with Robert Downey Jr.
That's right.
That was kind of madcap, that movie. So this movie I can expect to be in the same vein?
I guess we'll find out.
Okay.
Let's watch.
So, you think these guys are gonna hurt Amelia?
Sure. After they're done killing her. You know, I asked around about you. There's a couple of people I trust say you're pretty good at this.
Well, that's surprising. I would have thought your job ended with breaking my fucking arm.
Well, you know, technically, it did. I'm off the clock. This is a separate situation.
I'm not buying this nice guy act, pal. She owes you money, doesn't she? You coming to collect? You want me to finger her so you can throw acid in her face? Well, no.
No, she paid me up front, actually. You know, what it is for me is I like where I live, and I don't want to move. So, 2 days in advance, $400. Plus whatever the old lady's giving you.
Old lady? Fuck you, old lady. You broke my arm. I quit, remember?
So call her up, get back on the case, get paid twice.
Wow, that is very telling. I'm a detective and we have a code. We don't do that, but interesting. Good to know.
Okay.
Good to know.
You were looking for Amelia, right?
Yes and no.
Excuse me?
My profession is very complicated, okay? It's nuanced.
What does that mean?
Last week, this old broad comes to me and she asked me to find her niece, Misty Mountains.
Misty Mountains? The porno actress, the one that died.
The young lady. The porno young lady. But yeah, she died in a crash, and then 2 days later, her aunt goes to her house to clean out the place, and lo and behold, alive and well, Misty Mountains. She sees her through the window. She sees her get in her car. She sees her drive away.
Bullshit.
Bullshit's right. She's dead, then she's alive. That's what I'm talking about. It's very fucking complicated. But I persevere, you know? I run the tape through and I think, okay, maybe there was a girl there.
Amelia. The old lady saw Amelia.
Well, look who decided to show up for class.
Okay, so that was The Nice Guys. What did you think?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah?
That was a romp.
I love that. That's a great poll quote. This movie is a romp.
It was a romp. It was very fun. It was silly, but it was fun.
So you enjoyed the movie. Did you have any favorite parts or anything that stood out to you specifically?
Well, literally everything that came out of Ryan Gosling's mouth was hilarious. He is so funny. And I've thought that already, but he was very funny in this movie. And the chemistry that he had with Russell Crowe was really good. So I definitely enjoyed them as a duo. Yeah, I think it would probably just be their quips and their dynamic was my favorite part throughout the movie.
Yeah, they have really fun chemistry together. And I mean, everyone knows Ryan Gosling is funny now because of the Barbie movie and Saturday Night Live. But, you know, I saw this movie in theaters when it first came out. So I was like, I knew he was funny back in 2016.
I knew him from some things back in the day, but I guess I wasn't really aware of whether he was known as a comedic actor or not. But I do think he is hilarious and he does dumb guy humor really well. And I would say that's kind of what he's doing in the Barbie movie and then also in this, where some of the things that he says are just so stupid, but the delivery that he has makes it really good.
He's got amazing comedic timing. He is just very, very funny. He was mostly known as a dramatic actor. You know, I think one of the earliest things I ever was aware of him, he was a kid actor. He was he was part of the Disney crew when he was a kid, but I did know him from Lars and the Real Girl. That's the one that I think really put him as a serious actor on the map. And then he did a lot of serious roles. One of the first things I had seen him in was Drive, which is kind of like the serious, broody version of Baby Driver. Did you ever see that one?
Drive, no.
But yeah, I think this was the first movie. And I'm pretty sure I had seen, what's the one with Steve Carell and
Crazy Stupid Love?
Yeah, I had seen Crazy Stupid Love, but he's just kind of a general, just a guy.
Well, that I think is kind of a weird trajectory for him, because I knew that he had some of those serious roles. I didn't see Drive, or what was the other one you said?
Lars and the Real Girl.
Lars and the Real Girl.
Lars and the Real Girl we're going to do that on this podcast because it's a really good movie.
But I had seen him in Murder by Numbers. Have you seen that?
No.
That's with Sandra Bullock, and I don't want to spoil it, but he plays kind of a dark character in that, a little sinister. I also did know him a bit as a child actor. He was in an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Which I was very into as a kid. But
I could see that.
But then I think as I became more familiar with him, and I haven't seen some of his other movies, but he did a lot of rom-coms where I wouldn't necessarily think that he was being a comedic actor, but more that they were just lighthearted and he was the love interest.
Right. He's just the guy.
But now after the Barbie movie, he is a comedic actor.
Yeah, and it's funny because that is sort of like the opposite pipeline, right? Like normally it's the other way around. You start as the maybe the comedic actor, and then you move into the heartthrob, and then you get the serious roles. And this is like the complete exact opposite. He really just did follow a very strange career path.
But good for him.
But yeah, no, he is absolutely hilarious in this movie. Russell Crowe is fantastic too. Any quotes or anything that
I do think really it's mostly Ryan Gosling quotes that I wrote down. I love when Russell Crowe first shows up to the house and breaks Ryan Gosling's arm, and Ryan Gosling says something like, "I'm done. Put a fork in me." Don't really put a fork in me.
Yeah, don't put a fork in me.
I don't remember the exact context of this quote, but I wrote down, "You want me to finger her so you can throw acid in her face." Porn is bad. When he's writing down his notes, when he's talking to the
Kim Basinger.
Who?
Kim Basinger.
Yeah. What is she's in the Justice Department?
Yeah.
And he's like, I need to write down what you're saying. And then it's just this simplistic. Porn is bad. Oh, and his conversation with Janet at the birthday party. "You took the Lord's name in vain." "No, I didn't, Janet."
I used it very well.
Janet. And then even one of his very last lines, when he gets a case for a missing man, and he says he's 82, so it's time sensitive. But everything he said. And again, it was just the delivery. The lines themselves may not have even been that funny, but the way that he was committed to the bit throughout this movie.
I really love this movie. Again, it's a very, very Shane Black movie. So there are some tropes and some things that Shane Black does over and over again in his movies. So now, especially watching this one after we had recently watched Kiss Kiss Bang Bang at Christmas, because it is a fantastic kind of non-traditional Christmas movie. You can probably see some of the similarities.
I do. I don't know that there's anything that I can kind of point out specifically, but I said that movie was madcap, but I think now that's also a romp. And there's a lot going on, and there's crime activity, but it's fun. And there's just like a guy who gets mixed up in it. I mean, I know that Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling are they both private detectives, or what's Russell Crowe's role exactly?
Russell Crowe is an enforcer. So he doesn't have a PI license. He basically just beats people up for money, because that's a thing that you could do in 1979 in California if you were white.
Naturally. So they're not just guys in the way that Robert Downey Jr. was just a guy in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Right.
but it's got a similar feel to it
Mm-hmm.
in that they're not super successful or legitimate in the law enforcement field.
I want to go through some of the things that are Shane Black hallmarks, and we can kind of check them off as we go. So the first thing is snarky dialogue,
Absolutely.
voiceover narration.
Remind me when that happens in this one.
Right off the bat, the first time that we meet March and Healy, they both have voiceover narration talking about things. But yeah, it's mostly in the beginning and the end of the movie.
Okay.
Precocious kid sidekick.
Yeah, very much so.
Reluctant buddy action comedy.
Yes.
Third act plot twist.
Yes.
And these last two are maybe. One is Christmas, which the last scene does take place at Christmas.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, no, there's...
Oh, yes. I do remember there's
when they meet at the bar.
decorations around signifying that it's holiday season.
So that I think that gives it a partial check. You get partial credit for that. And then the last one is torture. The main characters are tortured somehow. And I would say, yeah, I mean, not like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but I mean, I would say the scene where Healy beats the shit out of March probably counts.
Yes, I would categorize that as torture adjacent, if nothing else.
Yeah, so partial credit for that. So if nothing else, then this is a very, very Shane Black movie. This is at least a 9 out of 10 on the Shane Black scale.
Feels like there's a threat of torture at various points as well, even if we don't actually see it. It's very ominous in that you think that characters might be tortured. Like when the bad guys first show up at Healy's house, when the quote unquote doctor comes to March's house, times like that.
This movie did not even crack the top 10 of the year. This was 2016 was peak film franchise. So 5 of the top 10 were superhero movies. There were 3 Disney movies, 1 more animated movie, and 1 was the first Fantastic Beasts movie, part of the Harry Potter franchise. So this was an original film, a unique film, an R-rated one still. And, one would hope that they would make a sequel to this at some point, but they haven't yet.
I can see how it would have slipped under the radar, but that's a shame because it's so fun.
Okay, so let's get to the recap. This movie begins in Los Angeles, 1977, with a porno lady's death, Misty Mountains.
Misty Mountains. That death scene was quite something.
She crashes into Ty Simpkins' house. You haven't seen this, but he played the precocious kid sidekick in Shane Black's Iron Man 3. So he's looking at a magazine of Misty Mountains, and she crashes right outside his house and says, "How do you like my car, big boy?"
She does.
And then dies.
He covers her. She's exposed. And I thought it was nice that he covered her.
Her mountain range.
Daniel. When it first happened, I thought, I don't really want to see a woman's breasts right after she's been in a car accident. But then I was pleased when he covered her.
So after that, we are introduced to our heroes, question mark? Holland March and
Jackson
Healy. Holland March is a private investigator who is a former cop and a little questionable. We meet him when he is taking the case to find a missing gentleman who is in an urn right next to his...
Actually, we meet him when he's taking a bath fully clothed.
Yes, that's true. Kind of questionable private detective who has been hired by Misty Mountains' aunt to find her because she saw Misty days after the accident. Meanwhile, we also meet Jackson Healy, who is the aforementioned enforcer played by Russell Crowe, who has been hired to keep Amelia safe because Amelia knows that someone is onto her.
So Jackson is an enforcer specifically beating up men who are preying on younger women. So he's trying to scare them off of being predators, essentially.
That's the first thing we see him doing.
And the girl that he is trying to protect in that first scene has streamers on her bicycle. So I was like, how old is this girl?
I'm pretty sure he said 14.
14? Ugh. That is gross.
Yeah.
She's buying weed from this guy who apparently is hitting on her. I do not like this.
Well, it's a good thing that Healy gave him a beatdown.
Yeah, I thought he deserved it. I actually was like, is this what makes him a nice guy? Because I agree.
March also has written on his hand, "You will never be happy," with a little frowny face.
So sad. That's really sad. That was not a tattoo, though. That was in pen.
I believe so.
So does he write that every day?
Or he just wrote it when he was super drunk.
Oh, that's a whole thing. His having a drinking problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very, very, very much an alcoholic, which we'll find out later on in the movie. March is trying to track down Amelia, tracks her to a bar, and is trying to get credit card receipts, which makes me wonder, could you pay at a bar with a credit card in 1977?
That's a good question.
Maybe in Los Angeles, but I would assume most bars were still pretty much cash only at that point.
That sounds right to me. I don't know. I don't think that this movie was that concerned with anachronisms.
So then March goes to break into the bar and a very funny subversion of the trope where he goes to break a glass window with a towel wrapped around his hand and still cuts his arm up so badly and just bleeds so profusely everywhere.
So, yeah, he is. I was reading him as incompetent until later when, you know, in retrospect, he was probably just drunk. Mm-hmm. But that was not a good move.
It was really funny, though.
It was. There's so much blood. There's so much blood.
And he does not get the information that he was looking for in the first place. Either.
No.
The next day, then Healy shows up at March's house to scare him off of Amelia's trail and just beats the shit out of him.
Breaks his arm.
Breaks his arm, with Ryan Gosling letting out a hilarious squeal when it happens.
Ryan Gosling is really funny in that scene. This is not really relevant to anything, but because I'm me, I just want to say that one of Russell Crowe's lines in that scene is, "We're going to play a little game." And I had a fantasy about a Nice Guys Saw crossover that really entertained me for a moment. I'd watch it.
Oh my God. Watching Healy and March track down Jigsaw.
Yes, I love it. And you know, there's still time because they're still making Saw movies.
Right. No, it would be a little out of time for both sets of characters because Jigsaw has been dead for years and Jackson and Healy are in 1977.
Prequel.
You'd have to have somebody else play a young Jigsaw.
No, he can still do it.
Just have Tobin Bell play a 20-year-old.
The most recent movie was a prequel, and it was Tobin Bell.
Right.
So I think, you know, anything's possible.
Just have Tobin Bell play 22-year-old Jigsaw.
Anything is possible in the Saw universe. The Sawniverse. We
also meet Holly, March's daughter, March's precocious teenage daughter,
yes,
played by Angourie Rice. She's fantastic in this. She's a lot of fun.
The precocious kid character has been done not just by Shane Black, but especially a teen or tween girl. You know, I've seen that before, but she was very likable.
Yeah, she brought a lot to the part. So after that, Healy returns to his apartment. I believe it's above the Comedy Store, actually, and is assaulted by two no-name henchmen. So they are nicknamed Blueface and Older Guy, which is funny because you have to wonder if in the script they called him Blueface before he was Blueface.
He wasn't around very long before he had a blue face. It happens pretty quickly.
He got blue pretty quick.
I also think it's kind of nice that they call him Older Guy and not just Old Guy.
Yeah, and Older Guy and what's great is Older Guy is played by Keith David, who I love. And he's always fantastic and everything. So even though he's playing a part of a henchman who has no name, you know, he elevates it because he's fantastic. So it was great to see him in this. So Healy goes to his apartment and is assaulted by those two, escapes, chases them off with some shenanigans. trickery and shenanigans.
But not before there's some collateral damage.
Yeah, not before Blueface throws a bunch of his fish at him.
Poor fish.
And then his neighbor is just shot.
I was going to say he also shoots his neighbor, and we don't know what happens to her.
Yeah, no, she's probably dead.
Probably.
She is shot, and then you never hear about it ever again.
But Jackson gets away, so that's what's important.
Yeah, so Healy gets away, and he then goes to meet March, or he surprises March in the bathroom while March is hosting a party for Holly at the bowling alley.
Mm-hmm.
Whose was it?
It was Holly's birthday.
It was Holly's birthday?
It was Holly's birthday. And that actually, so because this was a question that I had that didn't really matter in the long run, but I was just curious about it. Did answering machines exist in the 70s?
I think the tape ones did.
Okay. In the first scene where we see March, I believe he gets a message on his answering machine from Holly saying, "Dad, this is your daughter. Just a reminder that Thursday is my birthday." And she's just reminding him because presumably he is forgetful. But I was wondering why she needed to call him and leave him that message when she is 13 and lives with him.
I think it's implied that she doesn't see him much because he's out doing private detective things and also probably forgets a lot because of the drinky.
Well, that does make sense, but I'm like, where is she calling from? It's 1977. She doesn't have a cell phone.
Payphone.
I guess. But then she could be at home.
The same payphone that Deb used from Napoleon Dynamite.
But if she's at a payphone, she could just be at home. It doesn't matter. But it is Holly's birthday.
Okay. That makes sense. So, yes. So it's Holly's birthday party at the bowling alley. Healy confronts March in the bathroom in a very, very funny scene.
It's an amazing scene. Ryan Gosling's physical comedy in that scene is great.
He is great trying to hold up his pants and the gun.
He's in the bathroom stall on the toilet, smoking a cigarette.
With the magazine.
And when Healy confronts him, he is trying to pull up his pants without exposing himself, but also keeping the door open to yell at him and not drop the cigarette or a gun or the magazine.
It's a really, really great scene. So that's when our two heroes meet each other and lay out what happened. That Healy was hired by Amelia and now he can't find her. And March was after Amelia because of his lead on Misty Mountains' case.
So they're going to team up.
That's right. So that's what leads them to Amelia's protest group. So they find a kid who is a projectionalist.
A projectionalist? Yeah, sure.
You know.
Make it fancy.
And he takes them to the burnt down house of Dean, who is Amelia's deceased boyfriend.
A filmmaker.
And that's when we learn Dean and Amelia and Misty had made a porno movie together.
It wasn't a porno. Amelia keeps saying that later, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't a porno. It was an experimental film.
An experimental film with nudity.
So that was just the commercial element, man. But Dean had been storing the film at his house, and film stock, especially of that era, is especially flammable, and the house went up in flames with Dean inside. We also learned that there is a neighborhood kid who happens to know a lot of information and really, really wants to show people his penis.
He really wants to.
That kid was just champing at the bit to show off his dick.
No one wants to see your dick, man. That's a quote, but it's also how I feel.
So that kid saying the producer, Sid Hatrack.
Nobody's name is Hatrack.
Right. Leads them to Sid Shattuck, the porn producer, and the party in the Hollywood Hills. That is a wild party. I was watching it this time and thinking, okay, I don't like parties. I'm kind of aged past the point when if you tell me that there's going to be a party with that many people in it, I don't want to go, but I kind of wanted to go to this party.
Well, just for the novelty of it.
I mean,
there was a lot going on.
There were people in costumes. There was literally Earth, Wind, and Fire.
There was a woman whose butt was a table.
Yes, there was a woman whose butt was a table. There were topless mermaids in a giant dolphin tank, I guess. So Holly has snuck along and locked herself in the trunk.
So precocious. Well, here is my question about Holly. What is her reasoning for wanting to be so involved in this? Is it because she wants to help her dad? Is it because she's just that precocious? Is it why does she want to be there so badly?
I don't have an answer for that. I feel like it's one of those things that's motivated for fun for the movie, and it doesn't necessarily fit the character, especially if you think about it. Maybe it's just because, she wants to be around her dad. She wants to be involved. Maybe she thinks that he can't do it without her. She's helping him with his investigations. She's just kind of there. So it is, I think you're right. It is kind of a contrivance to get her along because it's funny.
It is funny. I think that there are some complications to their relationship. I don't want to read too much into anything in this movie because I really think it's just for fun. But if we want to get into any kind of critical analysis, I think there are things to be said about Holly and her father's relationship.
I mean, she does not think very highly of him.
She doesn't think very highly of him. She doesn't seem to respect him. She thinks that he is the world's worst detective, as she tells him outright.
She knows that he is a drunk.
She does know that he's a drunk. And I think his drinking is a little hard for me to understand the point of that. If I had to say a problem that I sort of had with the movie, it would be that it doesn't lean in enough to the kind of darker comedic elements to me. Like, he is revealed through the movie to have a drinking problem, to be an alcoholic. I didn't pick up on that at first. It really wasn't until this party scene.
Yeah, the party is when you really learn. I mean, and then some of the stuff like the bathtub kind of make a little bit more sense in hindsight. But yeah, the party is when you learn, oh, he's got a problem. Right.
And then after that, it really does continue to build on that with him having a flask all the time. And, the drinking just becomes a little bit more prominent after this party scene. But the culmination of his drinking is at the very end, or towards the very end of the movie, when he and Holly are being held hostage
by older guy, and March is presumably drunk, and it turns out not to be the case. He is faking it to get older guy's guard down. But Holly's heartbreak at her father not being able to help her because he is drunk, it just didn't work for me. Well, and that was a fake out for the audience, too, because very shortly before that, there's the scene where the guy says drinks are free. And that's the same thing that happens at the party, too. So,
right. No, I got that. But that's why I'm just like, it could have been more darkly comedic. But I just feel like they didn't really lean into that enough, where it just is sad to see Holly's face in that moment. But I don't know.
But then he gets to have his big heroic moment.
He does get to have his big heroic moment.
We'll talk about that.
Well, I think the other reason that I felt that way about that particular scene at the end of the movie with Holly is because there is also the fact that March's wife has died, and we find out that it was in a fire, which he was unable to prevent because he can't smell, and so he couldn't smell the gas. And that was another...
And he didn't listen to his wife.
But that was another plot point where I was like, I just wish that this was either... It's not really entirely sincere, but it's also not really entirely like black humor, where Holly is clearly feeling the results of the fact that her mother has died and their house burned down and they're supposed to be rebuilding it, but they're not. And her dad is a bad detective and an alcoholic. And when we first find out that he can't smell, it's kind of a funny moment because Russell Crowe is like, you're a detective who can't smell. But then that fact leads to all this genuine sadness. It's just like, I don't know. I just wish that it had either fully committed to sincerity or fully committed to gallows humor. But I felt like it was kind of in the middle.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair criticism of Shane Black in general, that there are character beats like that are darker character beats, but they don't really take them very far because that would detract either from the action or the comedy. And so they're really just sort of almost like perfunctory character beats, and they're fun. But this is not a character study. This is not Napoleon Dynamite. Like, we're not really getting into a deep character study here.
No, and I get that. And I honestly didn't have that much of a problem with it, but it was just more, I have no problem with morbid humor, but that really wasn't there. So I'm just like, why is this here? It's just depressing, but it's not really going far enough into being funny in a dark way.
Yeah, I think it does. It serves. I think the idea is it really does come from kind of an older, not like old school, but like like 90s kind of school of Hollywood where it's like we need to humanize our characters, but not too much, because if you do it too much, then you can't laugh. So
Yeah.
or you can't enjoy the kiss, kiss, bang, bang of it all.
No, that's fair.
So at the crazy party, then Healy actually does some detective work and finds some clues. Holly interrogates some porno ladies and stuff.
Don't say and stuff. Just say porno ladies.
Right. March then proceeds to get blasted on drinks at the party, becomes incoherent, jumps in the tank with the topless mermaids, and then proceeds to stumble down the hill and land by the corpse of Sid Shattuck.
Yes.
Played by, what I just found out doing research for this, Robert Downey Jr. in a cameo.
What?
Robert Downey Jr. was in this movie in makeup playing a corpse.
Wow. Did not recognize him, but he did have a bloody face.
Yeah, big bullet hole in his head. Apparently, it's because Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was a big part in revitalizing his career and getting him back on track and getting him the Iron Man gig. So he was very grateful to Shane Black for that. So that's why he showed up for
That's sweet.
for a day or two to play a body that gets thrown over the side of a fence into
a table.
to a table at a party. I think a wedding party or maybe a quinceañera. I'm not sure.
That was so funny. I will say that at least March falling down the hill where he ends up finding the corpse is not just a random drunken stumble. He is acting with a partner. He meets someone who is an actress and says, "Pretend to shoot me." And he commits so hard to his fake getting shot that he falls over the wall, and that is how he ends up going down the hill.
I love that cut and the sound design because you see him stumble over the side, but with the way the angle is, you don't see what's on the other side.
No, you don't know how.
And so he just stumbles over the side and then there's no sound effect. It's just dead quiet. And you're like, how far is he falling?
There is a lot of falling in this movie, and there are some cool shots involving falling. The ones that I noted, and this is also a good time to bring it up because the shot of him finding the corpse is so cool where
with the cigarette.
Yeah, he lights a cigarette, and that's when you see that he is sitting in
next
the
to
dark.
Robert Downey Jr.
Yes, next to this corpse. There is a scene where the nice guys are tracking someone in a hotel, and they realize that the people they are tracking are being murdered, and they immediately leave the scene in a transparent elevator, and they see a body falling from the elevator. That was cool. And then later, when March is with Older Guy and is not actually drunk, but is now going to be the hero, they both fall off the roof. And I actually, it's dark and kind of gross, but I really liked the shot where Older Guy hits the pool deck and explodes into blood, and Ryan Gosling falls right next to him into the pool.
Yeah, that's such a great shot. And it was, unfortunately, that shot was shown in the trailers where you see them both.
Oh, no.
They didn't show the fall, but they did show where it looked very clearly like Ryan Gosling was going to fall into the pool, and you couldn't really see, and Keith David wasn't necessarily going to make it either. So
there's a split second after Keith David hits the deck before there's the splash. It was very cool.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of very, very cool shots in this movie. So it's a very visually dynamic movie, if nothing else. It's a lot of fun. There's really great action in it as well. So Healy at the party then runs into Older Guy. They have a big fight, and Holly gets picked up by Blueface. Blueface then sees Amelia, tries to kill her. Holly thwarts him. There's a big chase, and Blueface is stopped by a random hit and run, which is pretty funny. Not killed, though. He is actually killed by Healy, who comes at the last minute and ends his life.
Well, Holly doesn't know that he's done that, but she's a very empathetic character because she has been abducted by this man. And after he gets hit by the car, she's telling him that he's going to be okay.
Yeah, she's
and
actually
she
being
is going to
very
get
kind
help.
to him and holding his hand. And then Healy comes and kills him.
But, you know, he's laying there, Blueface is laying there, and he is dying. And while Holly is trying to get help, in the moments before Healy does kill him, he reveals that there is a hitman called Jon Boy who is going to find all of them. And he actually says in that moment, he says he's going to kill March and his whole family. And I'm like, that girl was just holding your hand and trying to reassure you.
Right.
That is unacceptable.
Well, to be fair, he's not the one who issued the order, presumably, but
he seems gleeful about it to me.
Well, you know, R.I.P. Blueface.
Okay.
So after that whole crime scene, oh, and also the tree guy got shot and all of that. Poor guy in the tree. So that's the second just random bystander who's just there who just gets shot.
My notes, I wrote, oh no, Holly. And then I wrote, oh no, big leafy guy.
Big leafy guy?
Big leafy guy.
Did you just temporarily forget the word tree?
I guess so.
Big leafy guy. So that then leads them to meet the character of Judith, played by Kim Basinger. Kim Basinger? Kim Basinger. Basinger?
I think it's Basinger.
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 Are you sure?
Basinger?
I thought it was Basinger. Kim Basinger.
Basinger.
Kim B.
Kim Basinger?
That's what I thought.
Basinger.
I'm going to look it up. How pronounce?
Kim Basinger.
So Kim Basinger.
Rude.
Kim Basinger is playing Judith in a nod to her roles in LA Confidential and as other femme fatales. LA Confidential, I assume you've not seen that one either.
No, I have not.
Russell Crowe is also in that one, playing a similar part.
Nice. So they've been reunited.
She plays the head of the Department of Justice, which is she's not the US AG, so I don't know what that actually is.
No, it's not very clear what her role is exactly.
It's a little nebulous, and why she's involved in things that would, well, okay, the auto industry thing makes sense, but some of the other things like the pornography prosecution, why she would be concerned with, maybe she's the head of the Justice Department in California, but then she wouldn't be pursuing maybe because of the smog. I don't know. It's not clear.
It's not clear at all, but she is Amelia's mother.
She has now hired Healy and March to find Amelia as well, which leads to the pretty funny check gag where
it's heartbreaking, funny, but heartbreaking. But March says we won't accept any less than $5,000 when she was about to write $10,000 on the check. Oh, March, you can't do anything right.
It really, he that kind of leads to the question, does he help at all in this movie? Or is he just extraordinarily lucky? I think for the most part, there's a few times when he contributes a little bit, but more often than not, he's wrong or incompetent. And most of the time, he's just lucky.
I think that is true. I think that he is mostly just lucky. After we meet Kim Basinger, we also meet
Passenger.
We also meet her aide.
Tilly.
Tally.
Tilly?
Tally.
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 Tilly.
Tally. Tilly Tally. Who March very obviously has a big crush on.
Yes, March very much does like her.
And later she betrays them, tricks them into thinking that she is trying to help them, but really
Sally,
is not.
no.
And March does not get it.
So they go back to March's house. Healy tells his story about being the diner guy, about rescuing diners from a holdup at the LA diner, which I think might be the Pulp Fiction diner. It's one of those LA locations that looks really familiar.
A lot of diners look alike, though.
You kind of find out that he's a super violent guy. He really, kind of has these very violent impulses. Again, that's one of those things that seems like it's sort of it's like a perfunctory character touch, but they don't really do anything with it. We also learn about Holly, and we learn about what happened to March's wife and Holly's mom, and why she kind of pretends to play house in an empty lot where their house used to be.
Yeah, it's really sad. She's sitting in what used to be her parents' room, and her father's told her that they're going to rebuild the house, but she says, does it look like we're rebuilding? Again, it's a very melancholy moment that seems a little out of place given the tone of the rest of the film. But I think, the actress does a good job, and it's bittersweet. I like to see Holly and Healy bonding a little bit.
Yeah, they have a fun relationship. So then the next day, they come back from the bank and March is drunk. So that leads to the scene where they have Healy's clue from the party. And then March uses his detective skills to say that it's a flat instead of an apartment. And they go to the apartments and they're burned down. It's
really sad because it's just after Holly calls him the world's worst detective, and then he busts out these detective skills. He sounds so confident, and you're like, oh man, he's gonna be right and he's gonna have redeemed himself. No, he is so wrong.
He's very wrong. Also, that's the scene where I noticed, I was like, what is time in this movie? Because there's so many cuts between night and day, because it's smash cuts from the middle of the day. And then it's like later that night, I guess. So they were all just kind of sitting around. Presumably March is drinking.
Well, yeah. And who knows what Healy's doing.
Right. Are they all just hanging out until night?
Maybe he's still doing his enforcing business during the day. He's moonlighting.
So then they are driving to the airport. And that's
where they figured out.
Well, that's when they drive by the Burbank Hotel,
right.
The Burbank Airport Hotel. And that's what's like, oh, that's what it was. So again, March being lucky and observant more than anything.
Right.
So they briefly interrogate the bartender at the hotel. And then they go upstairs and they come across a bunch of grisly murders happening. And instead of engaging in a big heroic action scene, they just quietly back into the elevator.
It's very funny. You don't see any of the murder. You just hear murdering happening. And it's like the elevator doors open, right? You don't see anything.
No, you do see. So the elevator doors open and you see the one guy clutching his throat. His throat's been slit or shot or something. Right. And he's clutching his throat and dying. And then you see the other guy running away and getting shot very violently. So you never see who's doing it. You just see a lot of death.
And then they just immediately push the button to close the elevator door, and that's when they see the body fall.
Body falling behind them. That scene was staged great. I also noticed that the wallpaper is the same kind of vagina pattern that's in Ted Chaw's office on Mad Men.
I noticed that too.
So then they go back down. They're about to leave, and then that's when Amelia literally falls on their car. Which where is she coming from? How did she?
Was she up there with?
In theory, she was on her way to sell the porno movie.
Mm-hmm. It's not a porno. It's an experimental film with nudity.
Right. With the porno lady in it. And
the porno young ladies.
Yeah.
What do they say? The porno girl.
Yeah.
And he says the young lady.
The porno young lady.
The porno young lady.
And so she's up there to... Maybe she took the fire escape?
Maybe.
That's what it was. So she took a fire escape and she jumped down from the fire escape and landed on the car, I guess. There we go.
And she's now unconscious.
Mm-hmm. And at this point has been in that dress for at least a day. Yes. So probably a little ripe.
I'm sure.
Well, she shoots at them and that knocks her out. So the act of shooting at them makes her hit the ground.
It's a hell of a recoil.
Yeah. It's a big pistol.
I wouldn't know.
What kind of gun is it, Heather?
It's a little gun.
So she wakes up at March's house with March, Healy, Holly and Holly's friend Jessica leaning over her.
Yes.
And then she spills out the third act reveal that the movie is, in fact, an expose on the auto industry conspiring to suppress the catalytic converter. And part of the reason why the smog is killing the birds and the people with gas masks.
Mm-hmm. My question is, would that work? Would such a film actually do anything to the auto industry?
Well, that's a good question, but let's talk about how that plays out at the end. But I think in real life, something like that would probably, I would say that the shock coverage, the journalists then would dig into that and would find the information. So that would be one of those things, because I think the point was that Dean came across that information and decided that that was the best way to get attention to it. So, I mean, you'd think that maybe like just sending it to like Woodward and Bernstein would maybe be more effective.
Well,
but
yeah, let's keep going with the plot, because when we get to that, to the auto show, I'll have some questions.
So then that's when Tilly,
Basinger,
calls
So
and
silly.
March lets slip that they found Amelia because he has a crush on her, and she sends them on a wild goose chase. Now, why they both decided that Amelia would be safe with the 13-year-old girls, and they both needed to do this run.
It seems like something that March would conclude, but Healy, I expect better from you.
Right. This messenger run to drop money off for Judith is way more important than protecting the girl that they know people are trying to kill, that they've witnessed people trying to kill in the past.
And Holly and her friend.
Right. I guess they figure nobody knows that they're there. And of course, Tally tells them that she's sending the family doctor to look after Amelia. That's when we meet Jon Boy, played by Matt Bomer.
Who I recognized immediately.
Really?
He's hot.
What do you know him from?
I know him from Magic Mike, and also from at least one season of American Horror Story.
Oh, I didn't know he was in Magic Mike.
He is.
I haven't seen Magic Mike.
I'm not surprised.
I do like Steven Soderbergh films, so that might be one we could do.
It is not what you necessarily would expect.
Right.
There's more storytelling.
I think that's fair of all Steven Soderbergh films. I don't think any Steven Soderbergh film is like exactly what you expect, even Ocean's 11.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen Ocean's 11?
I haven't seen Ocean's 11.
Oh my God.
Should I go?
How did you not see Ocean's 11? It was one of the biggest films with the craziest cast at the time.
What year did it come out?
I have no idea.
See, that could be a fun
mid-90s.
That could be a fun game, is if we've come across these movies that I haven't seen, and then we look up what year they came out, and then
you were like 8.
Well, not just how old I was, but then we see what else came out that year, and I'd be like, I was watching this instead of this.
You were watching Ocean's 11. I was watching the Olsen twins.
Yeah, probably. But I've seen Magic Mike.
So the family doctor arrives. It is Jon Boy, played by Matt Bomer, who is pretending to be the family doctor. Holly susses that out because her friend Jessica is on the phone talking about the Waltons and the mole on the actual actor's face who plays Jon Boy on the Waltons. So I guess that's why Jon Boy has that nickname. She holds him at gunpoint. It doesn't necessarily work. He then throws Jessica out the window right as our heroes arrive, having figured out that they were on a wild goose chase with a ringer full of fake cash. Maybe a reference to The Big Lebowski?
Oh, maybe. I've seen it.
You have seen The Big Lebowski?
I've seen it. Here were my back-to-back reactions with Jessica. So Holly figures out that he is not a doctor, and she holds him at gunpoint, as you said. Jessica is like, Holly, what are you doing? And I was like, Jessica is so dumb. And then he immediately throws her through the window, and I was like, now I feel bad.
You willed it.
I did. I'm like, oh, you don't deserve that, but get with the program.
March.
Holly's friends are so annoying. Jessica and Janet.
Jessica's the one that March likes too.
Yeah. He's drunk all the time. What does he know?
Whenever Holly is talking to March about her friends, I was like, I identify with that scene.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's what it's like when my kid tells me about.
I'm sure I had similar conversations with my parents as well.
Right. So they show up. There is a big shootout at the house. The house gets shot up. Amelia runs. The girls are safe, though. But Amelia runs down the street as Jon Boy flees when he hears the police sirens. And then Amelia stops, asks for help, and Jon Boy shoots her dead.
Amelia. That was so terrible.
That was a very film noir kind of thing to
Yeah.
happen. I mean, this movie does have a lot of, it's like a comedic film noir. It's like, let's make a
Yeah.
film noir, but let's make it funny.
I mean, and it was a little bit funny in that moment because Jon Boy's face is kind of like, wow, that worked out for me.
I think he says, you got to be kidding me or
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
So Amelia is dead. The guys have no evidence. And then after getting out of jail, they are confronted by Misty's aunt in the driveway of March's home. And that's when everything comes together because she said she saw Misty in the pinstripe suit. And
Healy had seen a pinstripe jacket at the party that had Misty and I think a scene number.
yeah, and this is March's big detective moment. So this is when March actually does figure out something, that it was the costume from the movie. They go to the house, they break into the house, they find the projector, and they say, and that's how they know that the film survived the fire. There's a print of the film. And then they put together that the film is going to be debuted at the Detroit Auto Show, or the Auto Show Expo in Los Angeles.
Remind me how they figure out it's at the auto show.
I think it was the note.
Oh, right. That's right.
So that's when they figure out that, yeah, they're going to premiere it they're going to show it to everybody. So they race to the auto show.
Well, first, March is so excited about his actual detective skills
Right.
that he is very insensitive to Missy's poor aunt because she's been trying to follow their conversation and their deductions. And then she says, so wait, does this mean that my niece is dead?
Yes.
I mean, yes. I'm so sorry.
So they rush to the auto show. They track down the projectionalist who Jon Boy has already found and beaten and left in a dumpster alive, fortunately, alive enough to tell them what's happening with the film. They definitely learn that Tilly is traitorous and holds them at gunpoint and is a murderer. That conversation is pretty funny where she says she's killed 3 people in Detroit, and
March is like, you're not a murderer. She just said she killed 3 people.
like 1 is a mistake, but when you get to 3, like that is who you are.
That's Healy saying that their dynamic is so good.
Right. And then Holly comes in. First of all, March dives to the floor, and the ankle holster that isn't there because he saw it in his dream.
We didn't even get into that, but yeah, that was when he fell asleep at the wheel.
He fell asleep at the wheel when they were carrying the ringer. And so he jumps for the ankle holster that isn't there. Then Holly comes in, tries to save them with cold coffee because she thought it would be hot. But it does, in fact, end up saving them because Tilly slips on it with her heels and falls flat on her face.
And then March puts a pillow under her head before they flee. I'm like, he still is into her.
So then we get to the climax of the movie. The film starts playing. The audience is, of course, enraptured, but then it starts listing all of the details and all of that confidential information. And a guy who looks kind of like Evil Stanley is apparently from Detroit and orders his thugs to get that film. So now everyone is chasing after the MacGuffin in full tilt.
Was the plan always to show the movie at the auto show? That isn't something that they came up with after the people involved with the movie started dying, is it?
I believe it was always the plan.
That does make more sense in terms of getting that message out there because I'm like, if this is just going to be played in like porn theaters, I mean, this pre-internet days, or, something that people buy at the, sex shop, then I don't think they're going to care about this environmental message. But if the plan was always to show it at the auto show, then that actually explains that for me. I didn't understand. I'm like, why would anybody care about this if they're just trying to watch porn? Why would they care about this environmental issue?
Right. No, the porn is just the commercial element.
Right. No, that they needed the right audience, and they were okay. Never mind.
Again, it's. I think they kind of worked backwards. They're like, actually, I do know that because I did when I was looking it up. They worked in the Detroit stuff when they set it in the 70s, because originally it was contemporary. So they brought in the political element when they moved it to the 1970s. So that actually does make sense that it wouldn't have been there originally. So yeah, we have our big climactic showdown. Everybody's running after the film. We have March pretending to be drunk and the audience fake out that we talked about earlier. Then we have, that really great shot of March saving Holly and tackling Keith David off of the roof. He falls into the pool, sees the vision of Richard Nixon, which ties into Healy's story from earlier.
Yes, because that was, what did he say? He said,
it was a story about the jogger who fell over and Richard Nixon is over his head.
Oh, yes.
Like the last thing he sees before he dies is Richard Nixon. Right.
And then Healy or March sees Nixon in the pool. And I'm like, God, that would suck if that's the last thing you saw.
It'd be really confusing too if Richard Nixon was always the last thing that everyone saw before they died. It would be really confusing before like 1945 or so.
Right.
Who is this old man with jowls, and why do I see him before I die? So the big fall off the pool,
off the roof.
Oh yeah, the big fall into the pool. March should not be alive. There are so many scenes. He just is extraordinarily lucky.
Well, he even says that.
Yeah, he says I can't die.
That's I'm indestructible. It's the only explanation. Back at is that the shootout at the house?
Yeah.
Both Healy and March should be dead after that shootout. There's no way that they could have survived that.
What kind of gun was Jon Boy using?
Was it a long gun?
It was like a machine gun.
That's a long gun.
Okay.
We determined that there are long guns and little guns,
right,
and Uzis.
Uh-huh. Well, if those are the three categories, then I would say that probably falls into the category of Uzi.
But it didn't look like a bazooka, which is what I imagine an Uzi to be. These are the rules according to Heather, not what actually exists in the world. So
I guess it was a long gun.
It was a long gun.
If machine guns are long guns, then it was a long gun.
Yeah.
Okay. They finally track down the film. March gets the film. It saves his life, where he uses it to deflect a bullet at least once. Healy stops Jon Boy, and then Holly saves Jon Boy's life by getting Healy to stop from killing him. And the movie is over. But it has a very film noir ending after that big climax, where they say via voiceover. First of all, Judith, Kim Basinger, she is going to take the fall for Detroit and for everything, but Detroit still is really just going to get a slap on the wrist for suppressing the catalytic converter. There's no collusion found, even though there probably was collusion. I think that's based on real life. I'm not 100% sure, but
it wouldn't surprise me.
So very film noir ending where the good guys persevere, but the bad guys still win, basically. And then after that, then we have a flash forward to some months later where it is Christmas and they have their conversation at the bar. This time, Healy is drunk and March shows up and gives him their new business cards where Healy looks Puerto Rican.
And they are now the Nice Guys.
Mm-hmm. The Nice Guys Detective Agency. And that's it. That's the movie.
I liked it.
It is. It's a lot of fun. It's a silly movie. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It is very Shane Black. Like Shane Black definitely found his groove with this movie and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. We don't talk about The Predator. That movie was not good. But I think that movie was also killed by studio influence. But yeah, so you enjoyed it?
I did enjoy it. I thought it was hilarious. I was laughing so much while we were watching it. Again, love Ryan Gosling. I wasn't super familiar with Russell Crowe. I mean, obviously I knew who he was, but I don't even know if I've seen anything
You haven't seen Gladiator?
I haven't seen Gladiator.
Okay, well, that's going on the list.
What else is he in? What are his other big?
I think he was either nominated for the Oscar or won for Beautiful Mind. I mean, he's Russell Crowe. He's been in a lot of movies, but Gladiator is the one that put him on the map.
No, it's possible I've seen something that he's in, but I wasn't super familiar with him as an actor, but he was so good.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was surprising. They have such a good dynamic.
Yeah, it's really fun. Apparently Russell Crowe has said that of the 2 movies that he's worked on that he wished would have sequels, one of them is LA Confidential and the other is this movie.
Well, maybe.
So maybe, hopefully.
It's only been 8 years.
Yeah, so
it could still happen. I did not fully understand the relevance of the title of the movie because
I think it's just ironic and funny.
Well, see, that's the thing is, I mean, it's fine.
And it's catchy.
It is catchy. It's definitely catchy, and I'm fine with it as a title.
You approve.
I approve. It's okay.
Reluctantly.
I'll allow it to continue to exist under that title. But obviously, yeah, so they're not really nice guys.
Right.
But I also don't think that they're bad enough for it to be fully ironic. You know, they're just kind of guys.
Well, they're not bad, but they're not nice.
Right, but it should have just been called The Guys. That's my alternate title.
Right. Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe are the guys.
They're not mean. They're not, well, Russell Crowe's a little violent, but yeah, no, it wasn't, their characters weren't.
Well, no, because he's a shady drunk PI. And Ryan Gosling is a shady drunk PI who, again, in the opening scene is taking money to track down someone in an urn feet from him.
That is true.
And Russell Crowe is taking money to beat up people for money.
Yeah, but they deserve it.
Some of them, but also he's taking money for it.
I guess. No, I guess that's true. It was just another example of something that didn't lean hard enough into the irony for me.
I think it's just a title. I think it's just something they needed a name for the movie and it fits. So do you have any closing thoughts about the movie?
I think it should have been called The Guys.
Just The Guys.
No. Yeah, that's all I've got.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the movie. I had a lot of fun watching it with you. I think one of my favorite moments watching it with you was when Amelia shot the gun, screamed and fell over, and then you screamed.
But I didn't fall over, thankfully.
That is true. Okay. Well, thank you for watching this movie with me. And thanks to all of you for listening along with us. Once again, I am Dan.
I'm Heather.
This has been Blind Spots and Second Thoughts. So see you next time.